Betrayal was in the air. I knew it. I could sense it on the smell of used-up vegetation and the toasted smell of the fallen leaves. I knew it in my atoms inside, my breath blowing an ancient chevron sign that squealed from on its rusty chains. Not every autumn is filled with this sort of heartache and pain, but when they are, it is delightful. I lifted some leaves up and watched them gust around in my eddy of a whirlwind. This was going to be fun. There was despair here as well. As gypsy ladies in headscarves read tea leaves, so the winds can read the signs in leaves, branches, or in the case, boreas, icicles, and snowflakes. The leaves were spelling out a story, and I sighed and gusted to where they had directed me. It was an older house, wooden, I was happy to see. It was made from slats covered in plaster that had been exposed by the edges of the peeling tar paper that had covered it. I smiled. Ah, tar paper. What a sweet delusion of protection you are to the destitute and the poor. A lady stood on the rotted boards of the back porch. She couldn't see me, of course. Nobody can see the wind. But she could feel me, and she shuddered and pulled her shawl tighter around her when I played with her hair. Her shudders didn't protect her from my fingers. If she hadn't wanted me here, then she shouldn't have summoned me here as darkness was falling. I followed her as she turned and walked into her house, and I shut the door behind us. "You must be wondering why I summoned you here," she said. Her voice was low and sensuous, as though I was a lover who had arrived. I caught a tremor of fear in her voice, and her eyes were scanning the one-room house search for me. I was everywhere, all around her. "I must?" I asked. My voice echoed around her house. She smiled sadly. "I guess such things don't matter to the likes of you." "I am compelled to serve. I am not compelled to care." I was lying a little. I was no more compelled to serve her than a junkie was compelled to get their next fix. It was a want and a need that drew me here, but I was no demon who could be controlled and forced with circles and herbs. I suppose nobody can compel another to care. I want you to kill someone. Who? Me. I paused. My breath was shaking. The clappered house and the vibrations of the windows hesitated. You? Me. I need you to take my breath. Take my spirit. I'm not interested. Do it yourself. I turned to go. The door to the wood stove was open a little, and I rattled the door open a little further. "Wait! I haven't said you can go. I haven't released you." I strained at the edge of the stovepipe. She was right. I was stuck here. I gathered my air in to blast at the door. It rattled, but I couldn't make it out of the clapper. It was as though the walls were made of brick. I was trapped. She had done her work well, and betrayal was still in the air. Perhaps I could still feed here. She couldn't compel me, but she had me trapped here. My only recourse was to hear her out or to give her what she wanted and kill her to escape the web she had woven about us. Why do you want me to kill you? Because I'm constrained from doing it to myself, and tonight I will become a slave to a man possessed by a devil. No human can harm me, and I cannot harm myself. No demon will hurt me as I bear his mark. If I live to see the sunrise tomorrow, I will lose my soul. Please, you have to help me. You would betray him, this devil you are enslaved to? I don't think a slave can betray anyone. No deal. I would save myself. You had a bargain with him. What did you gain for your bargain? I looked around her shack in bewilderment. What profit had she possibly gained from her Faustian deal? Why are you asking me so many questions? Just do it. Take my breath. Take my life. She was getting frantic. The sun had set outside, and the house was dark except for a bare light bulb that swung about the room on wires that held the socket vaguely in place. I don't want your breath. I want your betrayal. You think I'm made up of air, but you're wrong. I need to feed, and I don't feed on souls. You're a dabbler. I don't have to do what you demand. Please, whatever you want, I will do it for you. I will feed you if you help me. I came for your promises of betrayal of promises, oaths you whispered into the wind that you would break for me, and all I get from you is self-serving evasion. You made a deal to take care of yourself, and now you will use me to serve yourself again. I blew up close to her face and forced myself into her eyes with ashes from her fire. You won't use me to serve yourself. Let me go. Free me, or I'll flay your skin from your flesh and leave you aching and hurting and very much living for your new master to claim at dawn. What do you want? She screamed into the wind and to me. The tension in the room was amping me up, and the light flickered. I want your betrayal. I want your pain. I want what you love most. I don't want your fucking sob story. I screamed in her face. The light bulb exploded, sending us into darkness and covering the room in shards of glass. She shrieked. I don't want your screams. I want your joy, and you have none. You love only yourself, and you mean nothing to me. No, my deal, my bargain. You don't know what it was for. Please. She was sobbing in the darkness. The deal was for my son. It was to save his soul. I'll give you him, his soul. I'll betray him. I paused in my anger. You love your son enough to have sold your soul, and now you would betray him? Yes, I'm afraid. I did it for him, but now I'm too afraid to pay the price. Tell me what your bargain was. He was a good boy when he was growing up. He got good grades and he loved me. He took care of me after his father left us. He was only a boy and he helped. Got a job after school and he never made problems for anyone. This is becoming a boring story again. I got sick. She rushed to speak, to catch my attention again. I needed surgery. My heart had always had a murmur in it. When I was a baby, I was born with a hole in my heart, but it got worse as I got older. I resigned myself to death, and he found a way to save me. He paid for the money by selling drugs, and he got hooked on them. Go on, I whispered. My interest had been successfully recaptured. They put him in jail, my baby, locked up with all those criminals, all for me. I lived, but while I was recovering, they took him away. I lost my son. They were doing terrible things to him. How did you know how to make contact? An old lady who used to live here. I came to live with her while I was recovering. I had lost nearly everything, and we tended each other as we were both ill. She talked all the time. Her lips had loosed from her senility, and she told me horrible secrets. I pulled up the floorboard and found books and other things. I did what the books told me and offered myself to a demon I summoned. He took my body. He took a lien on my soul, but he gave me my son back. She slumped to the floor. I could hear her knees grinding against the shards of light bulb, but she made no noise to protest. Mildred, the old lady, she died while the demon had his way with me. She watched us, her eyes wide open, her head turned. Afterward, I tried to close her eyes, but she just kept staring. There was a knock at the door, and there was my Kevin. He had been released from prison. There had been a mistake in his trial, and he had been set free without another word about it. He was a free man, and he didn't touch drugs ever again. And now? Where is Kevin now? With his wife and children. He had started school while he was in prison. He finished, and now he has a good life. A good life that you would offer up if I agreed to kill you? Her mouth was so dry she could barely make her lips move, but she spoke the word, yes. Give me something of his. The woman rose to her feet, and glass crunched under her feet. She knew what she sought even in the darkness. I picked up her offering on the light gale of my fingertips. A child's teddy bear. I smirked invisibly. I accept your offer. Her shoulders slumped in relief and despair. She opened her lips to speak once more, and I rushed inside her body, flooding her nose and invading her trachea and sucking the moisture out of the soft tissue of her lungs. She tried to scream, but I filled her, and my voice was the only voice she had. Her lungs filled full, and could not release from my pressure. I heard her ribs start to creak, and then crack. She was lifted off the floor from my deep wind, and I felt the moment where her sternum cracked open, and her lungs popped her skin open like teeth popping a grape. I dropped the lifeless body to the floor. I felt the deepness of her betrayal and closed my eyes. It had been a good bargain. The demon would arrive before the first light, and be disappointed and angry, but I would be long gone. In another city, a window blew open. Kevin rolled over and held his wife tightly to him. The wind blew the covers up, and he woke up with a start, feeling that there had been another presence in the room. He had been having this nightmare about his mother. He was sitting in the doctor's office, and she was crying while the doctor explained the surgery that was necessary. He had held her hand and asked the doctor how much the surgery would cost. Then he started to think of the way as an industrious boy could make a lot of money in a hurry. He was covered in a cold sweat that the wind in the room was drying rapidly. He shivered and reached for the covers, but found a soft lump on them. He picked it up and held it up in the light of the street light. "Stanley?" he asked incredulously. There was no doubt that this was his childhood bear. He hadn't seen it for years. It was unmistakable with his careworn velvet nose and his red and white t-shirt with 31 emblazoned on it in red. Looking at that bear, he wiped his lips anxiously. It was the strangest thing when the hunger for heroin could hit you again after so many years of being clean. He tucked the bear onto his arm and kissed his wife in the night. "Are you all right, Kevin?" "Just a bad dream. I'm going for a walk. The night air is all I need," he said. But a plunger was in his mind, and a sting from a needle, an embolus. "Okay, close the window though, honey. The wind feels like death," she murmured sleepily. Kevin closed the window. It didn't matter to me though. I had already left, and the deal was done.